Can I please get some party poppers in chat for Jasmine Roberts, our next speaker? Jasmine is an engineer, cognitive designer, and researcher. She's currently over at Microsoft Research studying large scale machine learning models and how that intersects with virtual and mixed reality experience design. Let's see those party poppers!
Hi, my name is Jasmine, and I'm an augmented and virtual reality engineer. I've worked at PlayStation on PSVR, Google on AR Core, and at Unity on AR authoring tools. What differentiates augmented reality from virtual reality is that it combines both real and virtual images, so both can be seen at the same time. In augmented reality, virtual content is added to the real world and can be interacted with, and virtual objects appear fixed in 3D space. In VR, the user is totally immersed in a computer-generated space.
Interest in AR has increased over the last few years and is being marketed continuously. As consumers who are mixed reality and virtual reality enthusiasts wait in anticipation of a head mounted display or smart glasses, sometimes we forget the prevalence and accessibility of smartphones and tablets. As of now, there are 6.65 billion smartphone users. This translates to about 84% of the world's population owns a smartphone. So, why aren't we capitalizing on this? Why aren't we designing for this? Because of the prevalence of smartphones, AR is poised to become the dominant and most accessible way to experience what's been coined the metaverse.
A common definition and distinction between art versus design is that design works within constraints. And so this talk was submitted in an attempt to provide focus and offer practical solutions to working with handheld AR. I was primarily inspired to speak on this topic because a lot of what we hear about AR is centered around jargon, which is only known between the people who are enthusiasts. And so we want to sometimes just impress each other. And we often get caught up discussing possibilities and a glossary of terms and very broad suggestions without really getting into strategy, implementation, or execution. And so we need to transition from what is augmented reality to how to design for augmented reality. And my hope is that the tools progress to a point that the tools for web development have.
And this low user adoption, if anything, should further embolden us as AR game developers and designers. Because instead of solving on a completely blank slate or tabula rasa, constraints help structure processes within the boundaries that they inevitably create. Poor adoption rates are due to some current constraints, some of which are retention and ergonomics. Another pretty obvious user retention issue is the activation energy. And I don't mean the activation energy in terms of chemical reactions, but the activation energy in order for a user to be compelled to experience the full gameplay of an AR app without dropping out. In general, the user has to download an app. Then, when the user opens the experience, there's an onboarding process, and that requires moving the phone to scan an area. Usually, there's a prompt on the screen directing the user to capture the environment. But users just want to jump right into the game or experience. One way to mitigate this is by gamifying the onboarding process itself. In the future, this will partially be solved through visual positioning systems or VPS that generate maps within defined locations.
Another glaring issue is when a player is navigating through an AR experience. They may have to move their arms around a lot and move their arms from an idle resting position. And so there's an area where it's comfortable to where we hold our phones, usually where we text. And when a game demands a user to take the phone out of the comfort zone or position it at a different angle, it causes fatigue. Even aside from retention and ergonomics, handheld augmented reality faces obvious playability issues. So first is touchscreen interaction, which is the most common interaction mechanism, but ironically, it's actually one of its barriers because there's a lack of screen real estate, and it's not easy to simultaneously interact with and manipulate objects in an AR scene. So after developing AR experiences myself and examining the work many developers and creative technologists have implemented in respect to AR,
I wanted to propose a succinct framework for phone and tablet-based augmented reality. It's the handheld device as a window, the handheld device as a scanner, and the handheld device as a controller. The phone as a window. The most common way phone and tablets can be envisioned are windows on the world. And this term was first coined by Steve Feiner and Blair McIntyre, although that was in a stricter sense. I envision it like the famous Magritte painting, The Human Condition, where we can use the phone as a portal. We can also use it to show 2D flat content, which was the case of Feiner and McIntyre. We could even use it to show different types of electromagnetic radiation spectrums, meaning we can use it to show X-ray, infrared, or radio waves in AR. When you look at it this way, you can see the phone as a limited field of view device, whereas future headsets are an extension of the user's field of view. The phone as a scanner might be the lowest hanging fruit, but it's still not prevalent as an end use case, because the phone as a scanner allows the onboarding process discussed earlier to actually be the focal point of an experience. You can see apps exploiting the phone itself as a portable LiDAR or 3D scanner. And if you notice, most recently, Apple's Room Plan API makes an entire experience out of scanning functionality. There have also been applications like QLone or Face 360 that allow users to scan objects or their faces or others' faces and export it into a 3D file format for use in game engines or in CAD programs. Another interesting use case is to consider handheld devices and phones as controllers. And so if we fully transition to head-mounted displays, mobile phones during that transition period will not be rendered obsolete. Current smart glasses like Snap Spectacles and Ray-Ban Stories require pairing with a mobile device to share captured content and to change input-output settings. We can allow phones and tablets to act as gamepad controllers to play games rendered in headset. For example, as a steering wheel in a Mario Kart style game, as navigation for a virtual character, we can use it as a keypad for input, or as a universal remote to control IoT devices, including the headset. When envisioning a phone as either an auxiliary device or a central controller, there are various use cases, and the future headsets themselves can even be seen as peripherals. In looking towards the future, we often also forget the wide utility and capabilities of a smartphone, which is essentially a miniaturized computer. Consider that some apps may provide a sense of novelty, but they might not provide a sense of utility. Phones are multimodal devices. We can already ask Siri, Cortana, or Google the weather. We may have to come to terms that we may not need a spatialized weather widget. What we have might suffice.
I hope that this explanation and the provided examples help with insight into building and designing AR apps. As developers and designers, we really shouldn't wait for spoon-fed solutions, but should creatively work around and exploit phones to transition users to augmented and virtual reality. In the next 5 to 10 years, we're really in for an exciting time in terms of content creation.
Thank you for your time. I hope I convinced you that developing games for current mobile devices is not something that's done in vain. And for further resources on designing for handheld augmented reality, please feel free to navigate to the following links. Also, if you are a fellow game developer of color, interested in augmented reality or virtual reality, and you're in need of mentorship or resume or interview prep, please reach out to me on ADP List.
Let's see some hype in chat for Jasmine Roberts. Thank you so much, Jasmine. You know what else is hype? Game Devs of Color Expo actually has merch. Yes, we have shirts, pins, and posters. Check it out at our Etsy shop, which is the same handle that you see in the corners of the screen. Give it a look.